Welcome to Take Me to Hoag. I'm Robert Brunswick. This may be one of the most important conversations we've had on this show. AI is changing nearly every industry, and in healthcare, the implications are unlike anywhere else. The person leading that work is Kathy Azeez-Narain, Hoag's Chief Digital and Customer Innovation Officer. What she's building isn't theoretical. It's already changing how patients find care, connect with physicians, and move through the system. That's what we're getting into today. Let's get started. Kathy, I'm really looking forward to this. Let's have the audience get to know you a little bit. Tell us about your background, and then we'll get into that big title that you have.
Awesome. And thank you for having me join you on this discussion, Robert. Super exciting. I'll start with a bit about who I am. At 15, we immigrated from South America, my parents, myself and brother, and we moved to New York. And I'm actually from Guyana, not the French one, the British one.
Okay.
And moving into the US at that age, 15-year-old teenage girl, having to adapt in a whole new environment, but more importantly, then graduating very quickly out of high school and starting college at 16 was pretty defining. And I share that with you because I had to develop this DNA trait of being very comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Sure.
And it was a moment in time where you just had to keep moving. I'm trying to progress, but I'm also learning how to adapt. And that trait just stayed with me. So later on in life, I went to American Express. My background has not been traditionally in healthcare. I had about 16 years at Amex before making that pivot. And it was an amazing career. I loved Amex. And one day Hoag called and they asked a little bit about what was I looking to do and would this be a fit and would I ever consider healthcare? And at the time that wasn't in my head. I wasn't looking to leave. But the thing that called to me was bringing that skill set over all those years into an industry that I really felt could use that transformation. And so I took this leap, but again, it was a leap of drawing me to the thing I like the most, being in uncomfortable spaces.
Well, very helpful, and we are very lucky to have you. So Chief Digital and Customer Innovation Officer, that's a big title.
Yes.
Can you unpack that a little bit for us?
Absolutely. What that title meant 5 years ago to what it is now and what it means is really different. The role is meant to transform, and one leader alone cannot really be doing that job. So pulling in AI literacy, pulling in technology understanding into every leadership role is really important. My day sometimes is never even about the tech. It's about all the other things that are required to move the business from we did it this way, now we're trying to do it or enable it digitally. So it's getting into the clinical side, getting into operational things, getting into legal things. And so the transformation of that has become a lot more strategic, but not just leaving strategy like a consultant, but now how do you take that strategy and actually implement it? And what I find myself thinking about a lot are the patients. What we're building, is that going to help the community? Is that going to help a patient? And so that's been the learning journey for me.
You know, one of my priority goals during my chairman tenure was really to have us prioritize AI knowledge and to kind of understand its application. And I remember introducing to you some AI-based companies, probably drove you nuts. With that, we're taking care of human beings. Mm-hmm. So that's at the forefront of this new world that we're living in. Kathy, AI has a negative perception as replacing humans, cutting costs. And I think it doesn't spend enough time in the headline news on the benefits to maybe patient care and what attributes there might be. Can you color that for us a bit?
Yeah, I think AI is a remarkable tool, but it's been around for some time, just in different forms, right? And so the idea that AI, I'll touch on the replacing human, piece of the wheel. Think about any technology that's happened in the past. Like, have you seen the movie Hidden Figures?
No.
By chance? So it's a movie about, it's a NASA, and they were using human computers. So back in the day, to do all the calculations on, rocket ships going up into space, they would use humans to do the math behind that. And the movie focuses on IBM coming out with computers. And now the humans are like, what are we going to do? We were human computers. We're not going to have a job. And this one smart woman decided, well, actually, those computers are going to need to be fixed. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to study these IBM machines and I'm going to learn how to fix them. But that's like, think about way back in the day, that happening and the evolution of job types happening. So that's been in history forever, and it's happening right now again. So I feel like some of the hype is fear-mongering to a certain extent, because no, AI is not ready to replace everyone's job, but there is going to be an evolution of what those jobs are that are now here versus which ones might become, taken over by AI. And I think that's a natural evolution, and there's been so many examples of that happening throughout time with technology. And in healthcare is a human business, first and foremost. And what humans bring to the table in that setting is something that I do not think AI is ready or able to replace. That empathy, that care, that looking at the patient in the eyes and understanding what they're going through. So the goal of AI in healthcare for me is, how do we free the humans to do the real work? And the real work is patient care, which AI is not in a place to do or take over, in my opinion. But it has huge benefit to helping free up that time for the clinicians, for operational or business leaders, for our nurses, for our doctors, because we need to free them to do the important work in healthcare. But I don't see it as a replacement. I see it as a grand optimization that we probably were never able to do pre the AI technology and where it is today.
I think about the healthcare job, our job at Hoag, it's life and death situations. So how do we ensure that AI is not going to cause a negative outcome?
When it comes to clinical care, healthcare has a bigger charge, right? Like you said, it's life or death. This is not just taking tools and plugging them into a system and saying, oh, we have AI now and it could do all these things and take over all these decisions. So a core principle is, how do we ensure the human is in the loop? And again, for me, that doctor, that nurse, that clinician is absolutely critical before we just have AI open up doing things on behalf of a patient, right? So everything we're building, especially when it teeters into clinical care, our goalpost is the doctor, the physician, the nurse, a clinical care team member has to be involved in the decision that goes to the patient. And I do think that is the right call.
So I hear often from many that as capable and as smart and as well-schooled as doctors are, they can't possibly have all the knowledge in the case studies and the triangulation of data that a computer model might have. So are there things that we might miss in supplementing the doctor's efforts that should be utilized that the doctor ultimately can still control, or are we already doing that?
Yeah, I think we're already doing that, and human behavior is already doing that to some extent, right? What is AI really good at? Taking large amounts of data and making sense of it really fast. And so that's a huge benefit to our clinicians in getting a summarization of things. But how you bring that system in to summarize for your clinician, I think is really important. It's not just taking the vendor tool that's out there that says, I've summarized it all for you. Just take my tool, plug it into your data set, and I'm going to give your doctors the best report, right? So large amounts of data, give them a report, because the human can only read so much and retain so much at a time. So there's a huge use case to say, if we can bring all that knowledge in quick ways for the physician to access at any time as they're trying to deliver care, that could be a huge benefit. So in my mind, we have to ensure that when we're bringing a tool in or we're building for solutions like that, we have our own rigor and guardrails that we would put into this so we can catch that 1% to 2% error, right? Because it will have those things.
So all the big players are getting into healthcare. I mean, we all know, who's our doctor? Dr. Google, right? The first step we do is. So what should people be aware of and cautious about when it comes to utilizing some of the non-standard or non-typical healthcare providers to gather their information?
Yeah, I mean, all the big players are out there, but they can only do so much, right? And I think I'm a heavy user of AI. I'm using it daily, both from a I like it, but also from a research perspective. Because if we're in it and we're trying to build in it, you need to know as much as the next person. But think about it this way. If you have Anthropic and OpenAI and Perplexity, all the big players in this, the infrastructure builders is what I call them, and their CEOs are stepping out saying, hey, we only know so much. What it leads any of us to hopefully grasp is that there are no real 100% experts in this space. So as we think about the giants in terms of the tool creators out there, they're definitely should be used, but they can only do so much. So the example I would give you here is, you can get a certain level of research, but then what, right? So in healthcare setting, that becomes even more important. The tools are meant to do a certain job. It gives you that research. It can give you some answers. It's really easy to kind of assess your health concerns on a tool like that. For instance, I do it all the time. I upload my lab results sometimes just to see what it would do. And it's incredible at what it does. But then when anything goes wrong, or they flag something, what do you do?
Yeah.
And I think that's the stop in it. So it's not that you shouldn't be using them and you couldn't get help from them. You can, but it ends at a certain point.
I love it. Understand what it is and what it isn't.
Correct.
And then you turn to the real professional. And I think that's a nice transition to my next question. And I think your title of your job, you really are an innovator, and you're, I know, thoroughly enjoying it. And we're enjoying watching it kind of unfold within Hoag's own ecosystem. So let's take kind of our earlier remarks and bring it forward now to what you're envisioning and getting ready to unroll at Hoag that I think will be quite differentiated.
Absolutely. I'm so excited about this product that we're bringing to market called Ask Hogue. In my opinion, it will be groundbreaking and absolutely change the way people access care at Hoag. And I'll bring this to life for everyone the best way I know how. Recently my mom's been dealing, and she HIPAA approved me to talk about this story, so just sharing that. But she was dealing with some hypertension issues. And, I got the late night call, her blood pressure spiking, she's feeling extra symptoms. Of course, I lean in, I get a call in, we get her to the emergency room, they do all the tests, and they're like, you just have to rest. It was just a spike, go home, lots of liquids, lots of rest, etc. And some follow-ups that they gave her. But of course, now it's like 11:30 at night. I'm obsessed with this topic. Why is this happening to my mom? And I go on Claude and I'm researching, right? He and I are best friends at this point. And so we're having this conversation, and he's really good. He's bringing my anxiety down. He's like, okay, he's finding correlations in things I hadn't thought about, like this new coffee thing she's doing, or these new supplements that she started taking, and they all could be impacting this thing. So we get to the end, and Claude's like, you're onto the right thing. You're doing the right thing. But by the way, I'm not a doctor, so you should also have your mom do these other 10 things. And 5 of those 10 things was like, go to a cardiologist, get a scan, get this kidney test. And I'm like sitting there, I'm like, Claude, like now I'm more anxious, because what happened there? He couldn't close the loop for me. And so I bring that full circle to Ask Hogue. That's what we went to solve. We didn't start with the tech. It wasn't about AI. We started with the problem of access, getting in, navigation to a very complex system, which everybody deals with. Getting into healthcare, knowing where to go, where to start, what doctor to see, and getting in a timely manner is really hard. So the product is built around problem solving that, and AI helped us in the journey of solving that. So imagine if, in this example that I gave you with my mom, I'm chatting with a tool. It's giving me similar answers, it's giving me some of that direction. But at the end, it doesn't say, here's 5 things, I'm not a doctor. It says, hey, we're a health system. And by the way, let me consult with that cardiologist for you on everything you've told me, and we'll get back to you. One of our specialists will look at this and get back to you. And that all happens in a matter of maybe hours, days, versus lengthy months and months of wait time. And so the idea is, yes, powered by AI, human in the loop, but close that loop for the patient and get them to care. And that's the goal of Ask Hogue and what we're building.
But why aren't the big institutions and the big players and then the really well-known players, why haven't they built this? And why are we able to do this at Hogue?
Yeah.
What's your sense for that?
I think it's what's happening a little bit, right? There's a lot of technology vendors coming at the health systems right now. And so it's easy to be like, well, that's an easier lift, right? I can just take that tool.
Yeah.
But again, you're going to take that tool. And what I can tell you is every time I've taken a tool off the shelf and brought it into Hogue or tried to, I learned, wait, they hadn't thought about these other 5 things that's required for this to integrate the right way, for this to work the way Hogue works. Every one of these health systems has their own operational models, right? It's not one size fits all. And having that complexity in mind becomes really challenging. So there's that, right? There's the elephant in the room that a lot of the health institutions, tools are coming at them, and it seems like the faster path. For me, what I've learned outside of industry, and this is where it comes in, my outside of industry experience, the infrastructure matters for AI. In the past, you'd bring in one-off tech and you'd plug them up into your system, and it could work. With AI, you need infrastructure for it to do its best job. And healthcare, unfortunately, a lot of the institutions, they don't have that type of infrastructure that many of the outside of industry players do have. And so stitching up these one-off tools might be a short-term win, but I think mid to long term, as AI evolves, and we're going to hear more about it imploding in different ways, if you don't have that infrastructure, it'll be challenging to leverage the tools to their maximum abilities. Sure. And so I think the health institutions appearing of that and appearing of having teams like mine, I will say Hogue is definitely innovative, right? Robert Braithwaite, Andrew Garney, our CFO, the board, you all have been such supporters of innovation and thinking about the forefront of this. So having a team like I do with engineering talent, design talent, product talent is a unique thing within our org. Some do, but they sometimes parse those out to external, off companies and bring them in. But there's nothing like living day to day, hearing patient stories, seeing the physician struggle using the tools, understanding how hard it is to work with EHRs. When you're in it on a daily basis, you have a way deeper understanding of how to go integrate with it. And that's sometimes to put that investment in, healthcare hasn't really fully committed in that way. But they'll do innovation for sure. There's a ton happening, but it is a different lift that Hogue has done in order to do it this way.
Beautifully articulated. I really like that. 5% of the pilots make it into actual use. Mm-hmm. The infrastructure requirements, all those things are point on. So you've been teasing us a little bit here, and I really would like to have you share a little bit more about Ask Hogue, and maybe we're not quite ready for prime time, but we're in the midst. So can you talk about the journey and when a customer can start utilizing this?
Yeah, absolutely. When we thought about launching this, we said, hey, who are the people that we really feel could use access today? All of Orange County can for sure, and the intention is to bring it to all of Orange County, but we wanted to start with our employees first. And our thought is they are at the front line of care. They probably find the least amount of time to care for themselves sometimes because they're always giving back into the community. So we are going to bring this live to the employees at Hogue first in mid-May is our launch timing. And I'm super excited about that because the employees were part of building this. We have physicians that helped work on the co-creation. We have nurse practitioners that are, looking at how we're triaging cases, and they're in it and deeply in the build of what we've done here. And more importantly, having them have Hogue in their pocket feels like the appropriate starting point. And so once we, bring it to the employees, at some point this year, we'll think about that more public launch, but super excited to have the employees experience this first.
Kathy, this has been amazing, and we could do this for another hour, and we'll have to have you come back on our program. But you did not disappoint. Great education. I'm sure there was lots of takeaways for our audience, and you represent Hogue very well. Fortunate to have you on the team.
Thank you.